Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dawn Patrol. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host. I'm joined by Regina Faticanti, local Lowell girl. And
Cliff, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you very much.
What's your sense of the weather?
My sense of the weather is that when I opened the door this morning, I did not realize it was going to be raining out. So I was not too happy about
The
that.
bottom of that microphone box there, turn that microphone over here. See the little square at the bottom says power?
There we go.
Thank you.
So I didn't realize it was going to be raining, and I then stepped back in, put a hat on. It's a little chilly, not as cold as it has been, but I realized that, okay, today we're actually starting our weekend of rain. It's going to be terribly rainy tomorrow. I'm not happy. It's not spring.
Not yet.
Not yet at all.
So I thought, because you would remember George Anthes,
Yes.
I'd mentioned last Friday was his birthday, 4th of April. It's the same as my father's, so I can keep that in mind. And then last Monday was the anniversary of his death back in 2022.
Okay.
But yeah, I have fond memories of George.
Me too.
And,
I have a lot of fond memories of George, because if you remember, George and I were co-hosts on a morning radio show that will not be named, and we were co-hosts together for a long time, and he was such a bright, well-learned man, and could talk to you about anything. The guy was incredible. So we had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of fun together. I enjoyed learning from him. I enjoyed being on the radio with him. I know you and he were very good friends. How far back did your relationship with George go?
Oh, since I got here,
Okay.
30 years ago.
Right.
So.
And so George was, he was a great co-host. And I know he used to bring you on once a
Yeah.
week to talk literature, to talk about what books we've read. And so everybody out there, Cliff and George will be talking about a particular book they've read, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I don't even have that book in my bookshelf because it's way up here, and I'm down here because I can't get to that astrophysics book that I'm hearing about, but that I'm definitely not going to be reading because it's way up here.
Wait,
and
at least you were. Are you still a college teacher?
I am still a college professor, and so when I read, I don't like to read stuff that's going to tax my brain too much.
Ah.
I like to I read, and I actually now have a little trick. So I read and I write down the cast of characters in a little sticky note, put it in the back. That way, when one of them comes up later on in the book, I can turn to the back and go, "Oh yeah, I know who you are now. You're so and so's son. You're the manager of this company." I like to read for a lot of fun now, a lot of pleasure, because I do a lot of reading of textbooks. And that is a different level of reading and of correspondence. But when I read, I still like a book. I don't like a tablet. I like a book. When I go to the beach, I want to have a book in my hand, right? I'm still old school like that.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about old school.
Tell me about old school.
Your eyes start to go, and you love the fact you can change the size of the font on a Kindle.
But they also make books in large print, and sometimes if I have to, I wear those little glasses.
Ah.
Yeah, and I have them everywhere. I have them at work, I have them at home, I have them in the briefcase, I have them in my school bag, I have them everywhere, so, yeah.
Well, I'm not reading for fun right now. Martha and I are reading books. I've got one that we're reading and then two that we have pre-ordered on the campaign back in November. We're reading Fight right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's depressing, but it's good to think about it. So.
What are some of the depressing incidents that you're speaking about, Cliff?
It's depressing to me that Joe Biden was still thinking he was going to run back
Yes.
in 2024, that Jill Biden was pushing him.
Joe
That-
Biden was pushing President Biden in what direction?
To run.
Understood.
That his staff kept covering for him, like his press secretary using the expression cheap fakes to describe news video that showed him having problem negotiating this or that.
Well,
And the cabinet, who has a responsibility under the 25th Amendment, just did not,
Engage on that item.
right, they did not, they were not prepared to step up and say that the president was bumbling.
Bats. He's bats.
Non-compos mentis.
Yeah,
I think Jill liked being in the White House.
yeah,
Don't blame her. I hear it's a wonderful place to live, right? A lot of perks. But to watch, I will say it was scary to watch President Biden mentally and physically decline in front of my eyes. Falling, tripping, not being completely present when he's giving a speech, calling out people who are dead. The time that he was finished giving a speech and he turned and he went to shake hands with, I don't know who, because there was no one standing there. It was scary to think that this is the same person that's got their finger on the button, right? And that I don't care how much you like being in the White House, I want somebody in the White House who is physically and mentally capable of being there. And if that book scares you, then I think it's a good reminder of the fact that people have a responsibility to tell the truth. Now, I also read an article yesterday, Cliff, that said some of the people around Biden were afraid to tell him the truth that he probably shouldn't run again because they liked their job.
yeah.
Don't you think there are the same folks that are afraid of losing their jobs surrounding Trump?
Yes, I think that's also very true. But I don't see him, I mean, I saw him digging a hole the other day with the gold shovel to put in a new tree. I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I'm doing that, but good for him. So the people who were the closest to Biden, the article was talking about he would shut them out. If there was any conversation about him not being prepared to run for re-election. And he's the one who said to the American people, hey, I'll be the white center of the two of the outside cookies. I'll be the holding spot until we find somebody else. And, you know, he apparently liked being president too.
Yep.
And as a result, he was propped up and pushed forward, and the media has a huge responsibility in covering up his mental decline. Now everybody's talking about and coming forward and saying, oh yeah, we saw it happening, we saw it happen right before. So why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say something?
They lost credibility they can't get back.
I agree with you, John. They've lost credibility that they're never ever going, and I'm glad they're not going to get it back, because I don't want those people anywhere near a leadership position, because the fact that they're not telling the truth concerns me greatly. Now, Cliff, I just hijacked but I'm sorry to have done that, but that really his decline and the cover up of his decline is very serious.
I agree. I agree with you. So a quick review of events in history. Back in 1951, during the Korean War, President Truman relieved Douglas MacArthur of command of American forces in Korea and Japan
So-
over policy differences.
I watched the movie Patton, and I saw him strike a soldier in the
Yeah.
face when the soldier had said to him, I don't think I can go back to the front line. And
Yeah.
he gave him a slap and like, buck up. But I can't think that that's the only reason why Patton got relieved of his duty. You are probably more in tune to the reasons why?
Well, Patton got relieved of his duty because of that, because it looked bad. And they took advantage of that, and they put him with a mythical army in England, and kept him there to distract the Germans.
Okay,
So Patton wasn't disagreeing with the president. MacArthur was publicly feuding with the president, Douglas MacArthur.
Okay.
You know, he and his father are the only father-son team to have won the Medal of Honor.
that's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. So, but it caused a lot of
Who's the father and son
uproar.
team?
MacArthur?
Arthur MacArthur.
Never knew that. Never knew he had a son in the service.
Me neither.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Douglas is the son who was the commander in the Southwest Pacific in World War II and then in Korea. Arthur MacArthur was the father, fought in the Civil War,
Okay,
and was later, I think, governor of the Philippines.
all right.
Got a nice hack job.
Yeah,
We should all be so lucky.
yeah.
I wouldn't be bragging about the hack jobs.
So, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, prohibiting discrimination in sale, rental, and finance and housing. This actually goes to something that I'm upset about.
Tell me.
I think, I don't believe in reparations for slavery. I don't think that the slaves who were freed probably had an edge on immigrants coming into the country, like those from Italy, for instance, who didn't speak
Right.
English.
I'm going to say that my family hadn't even made it, my ancestors hadn't even made it to the United States yet when slavery was here. So I too am not in favor of reparations. Look, slavery was a horrible thing. I talk about
Yeah.
slavery when I teach at Northern Essex. Slavery was a horrible, horrible period in our life. I also remind my students that the United States was not the only group of people to have slaves. The Greeks and the Romans had slaves. The Egyptians had slaves. How do you think the pyramids got built, right? But we had slaves during a period of time that we can remember and write about and recall. And yes, it was horrible. And however, I am not in favor of any reparations. I think that, then why isn't my family going to get something? Because they didn't have it easy here either. And I don't want to compare it to slavery because my family were never slaves. But I just am not a fan of
The
reparations.
place I'm in favor of reparations is with regard to how we treated blacks after they were freed with things like redlining so they
Yes.
couldn't buy houses.
Yes.
And that's an economic damage that we can measure. I saw an article in the Boston Globe a few months back. Family wealth for blacks was on average under $1,000, but for Caucasians was in 5 digits.
I'm going to tell you
We
a
need
little-
to rebalance
yes.
that.
Also,
And on top of that, Maura Healey is on the wrong path for housing because we need to be building a lot of very inexpensive houses so blacks can buy a house and start that generational wealth.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a great story. When I was teaching full-time at Northern Essex, I had a gentleman in my class from the Air Force. Now, his grandparents were sharecroppers. So they were the descendants of former slaves. And when he was a kid, his parents would ship him up to Virginia all summer long, and he would work with his grandparents picking tobacco. So he said, when I got older, I realized I don't want to pick tobacco the rest of my life. So he joined the Air Force the minute he turned 18. Met a lovely woman. They were building a life together. And so upon his retirement, he did about 20 years in the Air Force. He said, my wife and I, we took a map and a dart. And we said, wherever the dart lands, that's where we're going to live. So this was a black man, black woman. He took the dart, and the dart hit New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is the most white state in the United States. And so we're going back 40 years when he was probably looking for this piece of property. And I said, didn't you do any research on New Hampshire? He said, no.
Well, there was no internet. How could you?
Right, exactly.
Now you can just ask your
Wait,
phone.
how could you? They used to have things called books.
Right, geography books, okay, that would have maybe given him an indication of,
Guys, okay,
You know-
Mr. Smarty Pants.
so,
You're sitting at the kitchen table with the whole family. And I'll put the camera on me. You guys can sip your brews. You're sitting at the kitchen table with your whole family. We're thinking about moving from this neighborhood because we don't like it here. We're not respected here. We're going to move to a better place. I'm going to head down to the library and look up where we're going to go. Is that how they ran the stuff in your house, Cliff?
Yeah.
No,
Like-
not my house.
In
We took
eighth
a
grade-
wag, a wild ass guess.
yeah, so I'm
We
the
refer to
wild
that
ass
as an
guess too.
honoristic estimate.
So he throws the dart, it hits New Hampshire, and he and the wife take a weekend to New Hampshire, and he said, I wanted what I grew up with. I wanted to have a small farm. I wanted a couple of horses, a couple of cows and chickens, the whole bit. So I wanted to have acreage. He finds a woman who's a real estate agent, and he's going to get the GI Bill.
Yeah.
Right? And he finds a woman who's a real estate agent, and he and his wife tell her about what they want in a home, and can you find that for us? And she actually said to him, I'm sorry, I cannot sell you a house. If I sell you a house, nobody in this area will ever use me as a real estate agent again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer you to a friend of mine, 2 counties over, who also was a real estate agent, and she never, ever, ever sells anything in this area. Now, I'll provide her with listing information, but she will be your real estate agent of record. Because if I sell you a house, you and your wife, as a black couple, nobody will ever use me again. And I'm standing in class, and I looked at him and I said, so what'd you do? He said, I appreciated the fact she was honest with us, and that she wasn't saying no. He said, I appreciated the fact that she was honest with us. Now, Cliff, this is only 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And he used the other real estate agent. He bought a lovely house, 10 acres. He got a little farm going on. He's got some horses, some cows, and some chickens, exactly what he wanted. They raised their children there. He said, some of my neighbors still don't talk to me. They don't acknowledge who I am. He said, but I live with that. He said, other neighbors, they're okay. They're very okay with me. My wife and I and our family living there. He said, but when we moved in, it was a little frosty. It was a little chilly. People did not want us to be there. And again, I have to reiterate the fact that it was only
Okay.
40 years ago when this happened. And so we're not talking about a real long time ago.
No.
Obviously I look at my students and they're in their early, late teens, early 20s, and they can't grasp the fact that it was 40 years ago. And I say to them, go home and talk to your parents about that, because they remember 40 years ago. So,
That's the
red line.
Wayback Machine now, kiddo.
That's the Wayback Machine. You are very right.
Because now we all have a computer we walk around with. Is Eileen going to talk, or did she just say hello?
She just said hello.
Okay. Regina is here filling in for Eileen Delrossi, who's off today.
Good for her. She's got a great day off.
No, she's working with her son this morning, so that's
Okay.
family. She's being mommy duties.
Absolutely. Those are important things. Very
Well,
important.
she was just checking up on me, that's all.
Oh, that was nice of her.
Yeah. So, yeah, I, up through 7th grade, I lived in a sundown town.
Oh, okay. So explain to
not-
people what Sundown Town is.
Oh, no blacks after sundown.
Right.
So my mother went back to work as a registered nurse, and my parents hired a black woman from the town next door on the other side of the creek. And one day she was a little late, and we lived a block and a house from the bus stop.
Okay.
And she asked my father to walk her to the bus stop.
Well, Cliff, didn't you grow up in a mixed religion family?
Yeah,
America was much more segregated than it is today in the
Yeah.
50s.
Yes.
Because,
but
go ahead.
But this town was not just no blacks, no Jews, no Asians. There were only 5 Catholic families.
Oh,
Well, wait a
And,
second. You weren't a
okay.
completely Catholic family either.
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
What was that,
7
John?
Catholic families.
what was that, John?
Cliff wasn't a completely Catholic family.
Well, there's a story that goes with that. Because when my father was going there to rent the house, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I'm lousy with names. But the name I remember of the realtor, who's the mayor of this town, 2,800 people, Harry C. Vierick, says to my father, "Mr. Krieger, are you Catholic?" And my father, in a narrow Clinton-esque sort of way, said, "No, I'm not," because he's not. He's a Methodister. But he's people that are part of that break off of the Anglican Church.
I thought with Krieger, I thought he was Jewish.
No.
Well, you say you're a black Jew. Where does the Jew come from?
Jesus.
Somewhere,
Regina, don't help him with the answers.
Okay, I'm sorry, John.
somewhere in the north and east of Turkey.
That's your lineage.
Cliff says he's a
Yes.
black Jew, and so he's.
I used to say I was a black Japanese Jew because I have a foundling on my father's side. So,
Okay.
So I would,
But you kept Krieger's Jewish name, or German name. What is
it's
Krieger?
German.
Okay.
No Jewish.
Krieg, like in war.
No Jewish. Just German. I thought it was Jewish.
And I have no idea.
Cliff, you're the smartest person probably at Lowell. and you have
I
no
was just
idea?
going to say, absolutely. That Cliff's operating way up here,
Well,
right?
Did you ever do that DNA test that I gave you for Christmas like 45 years ago?
Yeah. That's how I know that I'm black and Jewish, but not Japanese.
Okay.
Okay.
So my father says, Mr. Vierick, no, but why do you ask? And Mr. Vierick says, it's not that we have anything against Catholics, it's just they tend to vote Democrat. Now, this is a town with 5 churches, and the Catholics had to go to church in the town next door.
Sure.
So they were benign, but there were these lines. For instance, my parents threw a party, and they asked the cleaning lady if she would help and if she'd stay over to help clean up in the morning. And she said, "I'd be happy to, but I need a permission slip." So my father went to
From
see.
who?
From the mayor of the town, because she was black. So my father goes up to Mr. Vierick and says, this is my situation. Mr. Viereck says, no problem, Mr. Krieger, and writes out a permission slip right there.
Cliff,
hands
what
it.
year are we talking about? What year is this?
Late 40s, early 50s. So,
We've come a long way, but
yeah, we have a ways
there's
to
still,
go.
right, there are still people who have a very negative mindset,
Yeah.
very negative mindset. It's just, so what else did your DNA test tell you?
Okay, so I'm about 2% from Benin and Togo down in Africa.
Okay.
That's where the hump out into the Atlantic is, where that curve. And then, so I have some from Scandinavia, Scotland, Ireland, Wales,
Oh, wow.
England, and then Germany, and then some out towards, like I said, east and north of Turkey.
Okay.
So it's kind of an interesting mix. I have not done I cover up the fact that my maternal grandparents' family immigrated from Canada.
Ooh. Okay.
So, but yeah, it's nice to have a mix there.
It is very nice. So,
But to John's point, my middle brother, Lance, was dating a girl was Jewish in high school, and her father asked her, "Is he Jewish?" And she said, Krieger sounds Jewish. So there's where John is. So Krieger sounds Jewish.
so
Never tell.
were they allowed to continue to date?
Yes.
Okay.
But then they both moved on.
All right.
So today is the day in 1976 that Apple I was created. And today in 1979, Ugandan dictator, the Big Daddy Idi Amin, was deposed and sent to Saudi Arabia. So
He was quite the horrible
Yeah.
dictator.
today in 1926, Luther Burbank died.
And who was he?
Biologist, invented some 500 strains of plants.
Okay.
That was pretty good. And in 1987, Primo Levi passed away.
And that would be,
An Italian chemist and author who spent a year in the death camps and survived
okay.
and wrote about it. Today's International Louis Day.
Louis. Good
And,
song.
and it's World Parkinson's
That'll get
Day.
you out of bed. Hurry, honey, get dressed. It's Louis Day.
Yeah. And what else was that, Cliff?
World Parkinson's Day.
Now,
Okay.
Cliff,
I've got a good friend with Parkinson's.
how does one
It's a fight every day.
how does one celebrate Louis Day?
I have
Louie,
no
Louie?
idea. I assume
You
you
watched
sing
the
Louie
Blues
Louie.
Brothers?
Well, I'm gonna guess the smartest guy in the room doesn't know what Louis Day is.
It's a song.
So we celebrate Louis Day,
Yeah.
and it's a song.
So you know I'm going to be singing that in my head all day long. You know that, right? Now that you've planted that seed.
Yeah.
It's going to be in my head all day long.
It's okay.
You know, it is
be
okay,
happy.
because it's a very upbeat song, so that's okay, you're right.
So, did you see where the White House press secretary is put out a ruling that she's refusing to respond to questions from reporters who display their pronouns on email signatures?
I did see that, and I got to listen to the senator from Maine, no, Vermont, who's Vermont?
Bernie.
Bernie. So Bernie was at a town hall meeting, and the person who was moderating introduced a woman and said to her, "Hey, I'm introducing Carol Smith." and she is this, and this is what Carol does, and this is what Carol does. And immediately Carol said, my pronouns are they and them. And he was like, oh, okay, sorry. You don't wear you're not wearing a name tag with your pronoun. And so it's a simple mistake to make. Now, I understand why Caroline Levitt is doing that, and that's because the president has said there's only 2 genders. And so she is probably referring back to that statement that he has made, and that he did sign that into law, did he not?
Yeah.
On the day
Oh,
that he signed.
executive order, I
Executive
think.
order,
Yeah.
400, I think he did, 401 day? I don't think the President Biden did that many in his entire career, but that's okay. And so I think she might be referring back to that. I got to tell you, I like Caroline Levitt. I think she is very smart. She is well-spoken. She's on the ball. She doesn't need to come out in her press briefing with her big binder, right? And then say, oh, I'll circle back on that. No, give me an answer right now. I'm asking a question. I need an answer right now. I don't tell my students, oh, let me circle back on that answer for you. I should be able to respond to them right there and then in the classroom.
Yeah.
Especially when I see a confused face like this, I know I'm not hitting the mark, right? I think she's very bright. I have a lot of respect for her. She's obviously got a lot on her plate. She's a new mom, new wife, and she's got this incredible job speaking for the president. Now, I don't know how you know what somebody's using for their pronouns.
There's sig block in their email.
Okay, all right.
What?
Their signature block, so it would be,
I don't use pronouns.
yeah, I don't use pronouns either, because
I'm not a cat or a rabbit or any of the other stuff either.
So I tell my students I'm cisgender. I was born a girl, raised a girl. I feel totally, completely female, and I present myself as that every single day. But some people when they sign their signature, they do put pronouns. Now I do know some organizations. I won't name them, but that require people to put pronouns. I don't know why you would do that. Maybe it's so you can respect people's authenticity. But
I don't process them well when they say, I'm yourself. I identify as yourself. I don't process that statement.
Yeah.
And if I'm talking to the person, I'll say, well, what do you mean by that?
right, and you know it's very confusing. It's
Well,
a very
that's not the right thing.
it's very
I learned as a youth,
as a youth.
yeah, you can call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner.
Right, absolutely. So how do you feel about the fact that she won't call on people when they're using pronouns?
I think it's a little over the top, but I understand what she's doing. And she's pushing back on the press, which has been so ugly to her boss, Donald Trump.
Yes, she is pushing back on the press, absolutely. And that's her, that's her little, power play.
Yeah.
It's as well as her power play of reorganizing the room.
Yeah.
So that mainstream media that always had the front row seats, you could see them all the
Yeah.
time. They don't have front row seats anymore, and I'm okay with that because
I am too.
they're not the be all and the end all of the media. If Cliff Krieger wants to go and represent a city life, then Cliff Krieger should be able to have a spot in that room that is of major significance as anybody in that mainstream media, right? And I think Levitt is saying, hey, listen, you trashed my boss, so now you're going to sit in the corner. And I'm going to let people who have maybe smaller venues come sit at the table. I'm okay with that, too.
Yeah. So, Saturday, 2 back was Burn a Tesla Day. And then last Saturday was a hands-off day. I haven't heard anything for this Saturday, have you?
So I haven't heard anything for this Saturday, except that it's going to be very rainy and I've got a ton of errands to run. But here's what makes me angry about Burn the Tesla Day. The Tesla was the be-all and the end-all of for liberals.
Yeah,
It was an electric car.
excuse me.
It was wonderful.
Progressives.
Okay,
I think
sorry.
of myself as a liberal.
Progressives.
Those progressives.
And then all of a sudden, now that Elon Musk is working with Donald Trump to uncover some irregularities in government, all of a sudden, his car is now persona non grata car. I think it's wrong to burn the Tesla, to throw a brick at a Tesla. So some
When
people.
you're done your Tesla story, I'm going to read this text.
Okay, so I think some people have taken it the wrong way.
Yeah,
And so the term today is now black and brown folks, black and brown people.
Well, this is Jeannie Balker sent this in this morning. Hi, everyone. I say most respectfully, but I find it very offensive to use the term black person. It's African American. No other ethnic background is described by the color of their skin. Thank you, Jeannie Balker. Interesting angle.
And I
Angle.
appreciate
Thank you.
that, Jeannie, and it was African American for a while, for a number of years, to describe the descendancy of where people of color, black people, came from. But today, most people who are black, Hispanic, prefer the term black and brown. And so I'm going to respect that, because otherwise I would have used African
Well,
American.
Regina, when I asked them that question, most prefer American.
Yes, they
I'm
do.
sick and tired
yes.
of being different.
Right,
I'm an American.
right. And I appreciate that. Thank you, John.
we do have people using color, though. People refer to folks like me as white. I mean,
The
this
media.
is white right here. You know, I'm a Caucasian.
Right, Caucasoid, absolutely. Right, that is white, and you are Caucasoid, yes. And so I would not have used the term if I was not aware that that is the most preferred term.
Yeah. It's tough to keep up sometimes.
Yes, it's very tough, but because I teach, I want to make sure I'm always using the correct language with my
I just want
students.
to put this out there. This is the helicopter crash from yesterday in New York
Oh,
City.
that's terrible.
And this is the family. That's the helicopter.
And that explains everything. You never let someone take your picture just before you go fly. It's bad luck.
No, that from the fighter pilot who
Cliff,
flew 200
When
missions.
you go on a helicopter tour, it's they put it on their website.
Okay.
But that's,
Wow.
sadly,
So the Red Baron,
do you want to talk
the
about
day
it?
he died,
Yeah.
somebody took a picture of it
No.
before he got
I'm
in the airplane.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about this picture. I can shut your microphone off, or I can talk about the picture.
If you want to hijack the show and talk about the picture, go ahead.
Well, this isn't news. The first time I've seen this lovely family. They're from Spain. He was the big cheese at Siemens. That's a cloud company, a computer company over in Europe. And this is the guy with his wife and their 3 kids having a blast in New York City. And I think this should be investigated. Cliff, you're a long-time pilot. I've never heard of a tail rotor system breaking off the back of an aircraft. You've experienced a lot more crashes than I have. Thoughts?
Well, actually, I haven't experienced any crashes. Close a couple times.
I know, Cliff,
y-
I'm talking about,
it's a
never mind, turn the
structural-
page.
it's
Turn
a
the page. No,
structural
no,
defect.
we're done talking about it.
It's a
Turn the page. Go
structural
back to your
defect.
boring stuff about 1812. Please.
It's a structural defect. So, speaking of structural defects, the comment that we got, nice comment, made me think of Jay. And Jay, I've got a competitor for Fairmount as the worst potholed street in Lowell. I think Industrial Ave east of Lincoln has got to be the worst.
So I drive to Billerica, and when I come off the exit, there used to be, I'm going to say, used to be several large potholes that were very hard to avoid. Now, I must compliment the town of Billerica because there are no more potholes. And there are no more potholes on the street. And as I drove down that street in Billerica, I thought to myself, if Billerica can fix these potholes, why can't Lowell?
Well, it's a good
I'm just
question.
throwing it out there, throwing it out
I'm sorry.
there. Why can't
Is-
Lowell?
You're throwing it out there like you were going to run for city
No,
council?
I'm not running for city council, but I am saying, if a small community, if the town of Billerica can fix its big potholes, then Big Bad Lowell should be able to fix some potholes too.
It's a good point. I
And they
like
did a
it.
lovely job, beautiful job.
Yeah. So, ID to vote, you saw where the House passed that bill?
Yes. So this morning, I was listening to the radio before I came here, and a woman who's a senator, and I don't remember which district she was from, but she said, here's the problem. So now I bring my birth certificate, but I've got married. So my name is no longer the same as the name on my birth certificate. So that doesn't help me at all. Neither does my social security card, because you got your social security card when you were 6 months old, right? And the name on the social security card is no longer, so for married women, this is going to pose somewhat of a problem. That's somewhat of a problem.
Is she prepared to abolish the requirement for real ID to fly? Because
I don't
right
think
now,
so.
my wife has got to get a copy of her second marriage certificate
Right.
from Las Vegas when she and I got married.
Okay,
Her first marriage certificate to her late husband, Bob Harlan, who passed away in 1965, doesn't help her. So, is real ID a bad thing then?
I changed my license over quite some time ago. I don't think it's a bad thing. Not everybody has a passport because they don't think they're ever going to leave the country on a trip. So I think what we need to do now is we
Virginia,
need to.
get on any plane. You can't fly to New York
Right, okay,
with this real ID. You don't have the real ID, you can't fly to New
right.
York.
But you can fly without a passport, but you need that real ID. So we need to help people now figure out how to get the documents necessary to be able to vote.
Contact the county.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a little sociological lesson. When we are raised, we are taught social skills by the people who raise us. Now, I look at John McDonough, and I look at you, Cliff Krieger, and you both were raised in families that gave you a lot of social skills. Figuring out how to get stuff done. Social skills help us maneuver through life. Not everybody is that lucky, because the people who raise them don't convey those kind of skills. And that's difficult. So you've got someone who may not be as well learned as the two of you are, and may have a hard time figuring out how to get that documentation.
Fred Wilkie, Regina, great input. Great to see you.
Thank you, Fred. Good to see you too. So that documentation for some people may seem like the impossible because they don't necessarily have the knowledge and understanding of how to acquire those documents. So that's why I'm saying we need to now figure out how we're going to help people get that documentation. And because I don't think it's a bad idea to show your ID when you go to vote. Not a bad idea at all. And so I think it will detract from voter fraud. And I think I can figure out how to do that. I go to AAA. I have the social skill to go to AAA to get my real ID. And it was so simple. It was easier than going to the registry. But I called. Sure, we can give you a real ID. Boom, right down there, right down there in Lowell to get my real ID.
I saw an article that said that since the real ID is 5 May or 7 May, it's coming up.
Yes.
That getting into the Department of Registry of Motor Vehicles, I've lived in too many states, I don't know what the name is, that people were actually scalping appointments.
Yes, I did read that article. You and I both read the article because the people are waiting in long
Yeah.
lines now.
Yeah?
Hey, you're a AAA member? AAA does a great job with the real ID. That's where I went.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
My wife and I both renewed with AAA. It's just she has to get her marriage certificate, prove who she is. So
and so in order to do that, Cliff, what does she need to do? Help me understand.
she contacts the county out there that Las Vegas is in.
Okay,
The name is in the back of my mind. I can't bring it forward. And talk to their people, their clerk, and they'll send out a copy. They may
Okay.
charge her for it, which is fine. They're doing work for her.
right?
I've had to get my birth certificate in the past. I can't remember why. So I contacted the state of Pennsylvania, and there are also companies that'll do this research for you.
Okay.
So it's not totally impossible. And maybe we can keep down a little bit of the voter fraud.
That's the good thing about having this ID is really eliminating the options for voter fraud. Absolutely.
The Judicial Watch crowd was claiming they found 5,000 fraudulent registrations in various states.
And Cliff, you need to shut that phone off. I'm really sorry, but you really need to shut the phone off while
Oh,
we're on
Eileen.
the air. So, Cliff just said there were instances where they found 5,000
All right, just a second. I'm going
voter-
to put you on.
voter fraud, but Cliff didn't say where was the voter fraud?
No, don't speak.
All over the country. What?
Okay.
No, don't speak yet.
Speak,
just wanted-
Eileen.
I just wanted to make a comment on AAA and the whole, and good morning, Regina.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, John.
Good morning, Eileen.
Real ID and AAA, they are so patient. I had to go back several times because you not only need, like, your social security card cannot be even laminated in any way, shape, or form. It has to be in its original form. Your birth certificate,
It has to have a
and
raised
it
seal
was
from
a
the city.
process.
Right.
It was a serious process for me because I kept having to go back because you needed so much documentation.
And you know, I agree, and that's why I called and I said, tell me what I have to bring. And they also
That's
said, go look at our website. So I made myself a checklist, and I ran around like a cuckoo bird, like I'm sure you did, and got all the documentation and brought it down there. And the wait at AAA was no near where the wait is that we're talking about. That's why people are scalping
few
appointments.
minutes, a few
Yeah,
minutes
wait
at
at AAA
AAA.
was a few minutes. That was it. It was wonderful.
No, yeah, I agree. I had to do, and I really thought the Real ID was needed to travel because my mother was going to Las Vegas last year, and I was like, Mom, your license is expired. And so she would never have been able to get on an airplane. And so we stopped at City Hall, we got the birth certificate, we got the marriage license. And wait, Cliff, I also have a question. Were you married by an Elvis impersonator in Vegas?
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I was going there, but thank you.
No, I was not married by an Elvis impersonator. So what's the county in what's the county that Las Vegas is in?
Clark County, right?
Clark County, yeah. Okay. Now it comes back. No, I was not married by an Elvis impersonator.
The fact that you even went to Vegas to get married shocks the heck out of me.
Was it in a little wedding chapel that you?
Yeah.
It was a little wedding chapel.
Okay.
Well, we only had a little bit of time. I hadn't met her parents. She hadn't met my parents, so we drove to Wisconsin to meet her parents, dropped the kids off, flew out to L.A., met my parents, and then we drove to Las Vegas.
Okay.
Well, now I understand why we connect on some level, Cliff. I get it. Like, all in one.
Yeah. There we are.
All right. I love it.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Eileen.
Yeah,
Thanks, Eileen.
on the checklist. And every time I went, I was like going back and forth. I think I went back 3 times
Oh,
to AAA
that's tough.
to get the Real ID for myself. But I'll never forget it.
Well, you got it, and I'm glad.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So I did want to mention that I reached out to our senator,
Laurie Trahan?
no, Elizabeth Warren,
Oh,
about her vote on providing arms to Israel. She voted against it,
right.
and I said that I thought she should have voted for it.
I agree.
I have heard nothing back from her.
Cliff, if the phone ain't ringing, it's her.
Yeah.
So don't hold your breath.
And then I called Lori Trahan's office here in Lowell to see if she issued any statements condemning people calling for the assassination of Elon Musk or Donald Trump. And the clerk I got said, no, she is not, which is a little disappointing.
It's very disappointed because I don't think that it's acceptable to call for the killing of anybody. So, and if we start drawing along party lines, it's okay to kill them because they're Republicans, then that's a problem. That is a huge, huge problem. And I think that people should come out and make very solid statements that the burning Teslas, damaging Teslas, unacceptable, because a year ago, Elon Musk was the darling of the Democratic Party because he made an all-electric vehicle. And so I am bothered by the fact that now he is hated because he still makes that electric vehicle, but he also is now running this group called DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. And hey, I appreciate getting somebody who's 115 years old off the Social Security rolls.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's face it.
These things happen. Mistakes are made.
Mistakes happen, mistakes are made, so let's correct them. What's the big deal? Let's correct the mistakes. What's the big deal?
I found some lady on our voter roll one day from the 1600s
Oh, gosh.
with the name of Strong. Well, the Strong family founded Littleton back in the 1600s. So I thought maybe she was just sort of left over, but or related to my wife, is
Okay.
related to the Strongs.
All right.
It was interesting. So mistakes happen, they get corrected.
We're going to break. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the City Life Show. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host. Eileen's off today. Regina kindly came in. She's going to be with us for another 30 minutes.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Regina Faticanti,
Yes.
former school committee member.
Yes.
Did you hold the seat that Eileen now holds?
No, so I actually took Kathy Kelly's seat. And when Kathy Kelly left the school committee to run for city council, she did that in August, and I decided, so that was the second time I ran. And so I decided to take out papers to run. I took her seat. I think Eileen she's got somebody else's, actually,
Yeah.
Eileen now has a brand-new seat because Eileen is a Centerville District representative. She's not citywide.
Yeah.
So she has a new seat.
So Regina works in the sheriff's office, and we have with us Dennis Galvin, formerly of the state police. You were a major in the state police?
Yes.
And Dennis is the head of an operation called Maple Mass Association for Professional Law Enforcement. It's a 501c4 organization. It's registered here in Massachusetts, and made of current, former, and retired police officers and criminal justice educators.
Yeah.
So I guess that means you could be part of Maple.
I could be part of
Absolutely,
Maple. I'm
absolutely.
looking to retire anytime now, Dennis. I'm looking to retire.
Before we get to the Maple issues, I wanted to whinge about the election turnout in Tewksbury. I always thought of those as patriotic, hard-charging, civic-minded Americans.
Okay?
And their election Saturday a week ago, 8.09% bothered to go to the polls.
So how many actual people went? How many people voted?
I don't have that. Yeah, I do. 2,094.
What's the number of eligible voters in Tewksbury?
25, well, registered 25,872.
Okay. That's pretty low.
Pretty low. I did think they were from downtown Lowell or something
That's
like
pretty.
that.
That's a pretty low voter turnout.
Yeah.
And what were they going to vote for?
Oh, selectmen, school
Okay.
committee,
Okay.
and a bunch of different boards.
So it's interesting that their election was on a Saturday because, people have bounced around the idea of, well, if we had elections on Saturdays, it would be easier because people have Saturday off.
Yeah.
I have Saturday off. And you know what I do with my Saturdays? I run my errands. Now, I would obviously, because I have not missed an election, I would obviously squeeze in, I got to go at 1 o'clock to the polls to vote, as I'm sure Dennis would be doing the same thing, right? So it's unfortunate that people in Tewksbury did not think about maybe the fact that, hey, I got the day off, let me put it in my schedule to get to to get to town hall to go vote.
Yeah. It's sad. But going to policing, did you have any thoughts, Dennis, on the Karen Reed trial and the firing of Michael Proctor?
Yes, we've had, we publicly, have some public statements we made regarding that.
Who's the we?
Maple.
And tell me what Maple does, Dennis, so that I am.
Remind the audience what MAPLE stands for.
Yeah.
Well, Maple is for the Massachusetts Association for Professional Law Enforcement. We're an organization that's deeply concerned about the role and perception of policing in society, particularly here in Massachusetts. And we want to improve that image and that presence and that perception by working to achieve a better quality policing and also more effective policing. So those are the two things we're trying to do. We think our motto is the law will not be respected until those who enforce it are. And right now, there's not a lot of public respect for the police, and that's something we're trying to change. But we realize that the only way that we can do that is by actually changing policing itself to make it to improve it and to make it more professional. So we've cut out that little job for ourselves, and we're busy with it.
So when you say busy, tell me what you actually go out into the community to do.
Okay, so we'll provide, obviously what we do is we engage very continuously with the Post Commission. The Post Commission was established in 2020. It's promulgating the standards for policing in Massachusetts. It's an all-civilian body. I correct that. There's 9 members on it. 3 are police-related. The rest of them are not. So the intent was to make it a civilian oversight group. So we are engaging with them, providing them information, trying to suggest policies and procedures that we think are important or effective. We also will engage the legislature. Right now, we will be launching an initiative to improve educational standards for police officers coming up this year. We also provide training. If we're asked to, we'll go out and provide information to police professionals. We'll talk to the public. Public is certainly an important part of our outreach, and policymakers. So those are the things that we try to do. We're trying to educate and make people aware of the importance of policing in this society, as well as to offer some recommendations as to the direction the society should go with it.
So when you say educational standards, do you want police officers to come onto the job with some college education?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
you would be, so the way it used to work, 18 years old, you went down, you took the civil service
Right.
test, and you were lucky when a city or town called you to hire you, and you went to work, you went to the academy, maybe at 19 years old. You didn't have college. And what lots of law enforcement corrections folks did was, after they got hired, they went and got that degree.
Yeah.
Because a lot of cities and towns paid for you to be a more educated individual. So I worked at Western New England College for 10 years. I got my master's there, and then they asked me to come and teach there. So I would, every semester, I'm looking at, 40 brand-new faces of people in law enforcement who are coming to get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, because they had started their career when they were 18, 19 years old. So are you looking to push back the time when people can actually apply to become a law enforcement officer?
Yeah, we think, I think the data that we've been looking at suggests that 19, 20 years old is much too young for police officers. You need a much more mature, much more experienced people to come into this, have some life experiences. Additionally, what you need folks who, we think that, educating police officers across the board is no matter what, is a good thing to do. However, we think the education will be more effective if they get it before they go into the profession or the service. And that's because once you get into the service, you become so enveloped in the culture of the service that it's very difficult to change your attitude and change your direction. So we think pre-education beforehand is very important, and we advocate for that. We're going to be pushing for a 60-credit hour requirement for police officers across the board, and we're going to try to help start making that case very soon.
This is interesting. In the Israeli Air Force, and maybe it's different now, but back when I was in the service, they didn't want anyone to go and learn how to become a fighter pilot if they were 22, 23 years old, because they thought they were too old. That they wanted younger people with fast reflexes
sure.
and no conservation in their approach. And so when you think about the police, yeah, I'm not sure I want a policeman who's young and quick on the draw. And what do the psychologists tell us? The brains mature by what, 23, 24?
Right, and men's brains mature. No offense to all the men out there listening, but men's brains mature later than women. And so, so you're probably not going to have all the cognitive skills at 21 that you would have at maybe 22, 23 years old, just because the brain is it's still developing, it's still taking in information.
Yeah.
Whereas women are more cognitively defined by their 20s, by the time they're 20. It takes men a little longer. No offense, gentlemen, that's just science, just biology and science. That's all it is.
So, speaking of all this cognitive stuff, so Karen Reed and Michael Proctor, Karen Reed, they're still trying to find a jury for her.
That's correct.
They
Going to be very
want-
difficult, I
They
think.
want two, I think the judge only wants two more, just in case jurors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very difficult case. I mean, I think some people have commented that it's ironic because it happens in the same courthouse, but this case is now starting to rival the Sacco-Vanzetti case as far as public attention and public response. We know for a fact, and I know for a fact because I witnessed it and I've seen it, there is a significant amount of attention being paid to this case, not only in Massachusetts, but across the nation.
Yes.
And it's really showing the Massachusetts criminal justice system. The Massachusetts criminal justice system itself is on trial
Yes.
right now. So this is a very, very significant
The
case.
Canton Police Department is on trial right now.
So is the state police as well.
Yes, because Michael Proctor was a state police officer, and I think Cliff
No,
was...
wait, was Proctor state or was he city?
No, he was a state
He was a
police
state
officer.
police
Oh,
officer.
okay.
So, Dennis, you were starting to say, and I think I might have interrupted you, your organization, Maple, has actually made some statements regarding this case. Can you tell me what those statements are?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. As you know, just to give you, before we get to that, the state police hired a new colonel.
Yes.
His name was Jeffrey Noble.
Came from Connecticut, right?
No,
No,
New Jersey.
New
Jersey,
New
yeah,
Jersey.
okay.
And this was his first real big public test. So Proctor was put on trial. I think he was charged probably with conduct unbecoming. And the trial board rendered its finding, and the colonel supported it and fired him. We were contacted by numerous media outlets, Fox 25, the Boston Herald, Boston Globe, and were asked for an opinion, and we supported the colonel in his termination. We thought that the situation involving Trooper Proctor was so egregious that it undermined confidence in the Massachusetts State Police among the public, and that needed to be restored as a priority, and I think Colonel Noble did the right thing.
Dennis, can you remind people what Trooper Proctor, now Mr. Proctor, did to get to that led to his firing? What were his actions?
Well,
in the
he had
Karen
been
Lee case?
involved. He was he had a critical role to play in this whole investigation. He was the lead investigator, and which put a lot of responsibility on him, and requires an individual of excellent judgment and poise and integrity. And he began to make some very gross comments about the defendant at the time, Karen Reed, to cohorts, but he did it on a social media platform that was discoverable in court. And I mean, the extent of the comments that he made were horrendous. It was absolutely.
Which we cannot repeat because we do not want Mr. McDonough to lose his license
No, we
to
don't.
continue to broadcast here in the morning.
And what the comments revealed, and what the comments raised as an issue was his objectivity
Right.
in his ability to be able to conduct his
Excellent
his
statement.
duties within the parameters of what he's required to do. And once that occurs, now and it wasn't just Proctor. He had supervisory individuals that were implicated with him that have since been transferred to other duties. But he took the brunt of it, and rightfully so. And as a result of this, the entire state police operation in that district attorney's office was now under question. And you take that with other issues that have involved the state police over the course of the year, and the entire department is facing issues about credibility and public support. So we're concerned about that.
Right, because it has hit, so we should also let people know that Trooper Proctor was the lead investigator on another
That's correct.
big case that is going to be facing the court right now. It's about the death of a woman allegedly, but I have to use the word allegedly, by her husband. And that defendant is now using the fact that Trooper Proctor has been defiled in public and been fired because of his behavior. He's now using that to say, hey, wait a minute, Trooper Proctor was the lead investigator in my murder case. And I think that we need to take a look at how that affected, or was he affected by in his judgment making comments about my case. So if you, I don't remember the name of the defendant in that case, I'm sure you do. Can you tell me how that's going to play out?
Well, I think it's a Cohasset or a Situate case.
Yeah, you're right, you're correct.
Right,
yes.
and it involved an individual who I guess he dismembered his wife or whatever.
Yes.
And so that'll play out in the courts. But there's an additional case that raises issues, not so much with the state police in this case, but somewhat. And that is the Sarah Birchmore case.
Oh, that's terrible. Can
All right.
can you refresh people's memory about poor Sarah Birchmore?
Yeah, Sarah Birchmore was a very vulnerable 17, 18-year-old
Very young girl.
woman. And she was interested in policing, and she basically joined a police training program involving an individual, the Stoughton Police
Which
Department.
hundreds of kids join.
Yeah.
It's like an explorer's program.
That's right.
To get an idea of what it's like to be on the inside.
Yeah.
And she was a very vulnerable young woman. That was a perfect statement.
Yeah, and what happened
Grooming is a good word to use.
Grooming
here.
is a very good word, Cliff, absolutely, because that's what happened here.
Yeah, and what happened is she became involved with a relationship with the instructor,
Yes.
a fellow by the name of officer by the name of Falwell, and eventually her body was found dead in her apartment, and the original finding was a suicide, and then upon aggressive follow-up, that was later changed to find out that she was strangled, and now that the officer who was the person that she had the affair with is now being charged with a murder. So that's a significant problem.
She was also pregnant.
Yeah.
By this officer.
That's correct.
And apparently, to woo her, to groom her, as Cliff said, he led her to believe that he was happy that she was having a baby, that this was a wonderful thing. She was out looking for strollers and baby clothes, and he came to her home, which was her apartment, which was nothing different for her, but this time different for him.
Yeah.
Allegedly, he murdered her to shut her up.
Yeah, so
And-
those are two examples of very, very serious allegations involving abuse of police power that need to be addressed and need to be rectified, as far as reforms and policies and things like that to prevent things like that from happening. That's going to be a challenging task, though, and that's what we're involved with.
And Dennis, I actually have to commend you and the group Maple that you work with, because it's not easy to buck the system.
No, it's not.
It's not easy to, especially when you were part of the system, it's not easy to come out and say, hey, wait a minute, you're doing something wrong and you need to fix it. Because these are the people you've worked with, you've gone to the training academy with, and those relationships are intense relationships. So I commend you and your group for actually saying, wait a minute, we will call it out when we see wrongdoing. We will call it out. So I need to ask you.
It's been an interesting experience for us because, as you say, there has been pushback among some of our former colleagues. But what I would also say is that some of our better colleagues have come to the fore and supported us, and that has been that's been very, very inspiring for me. I make the distinction that there were actually two different state police. State police that you see today is not the state police that existed during the time that myself and many of these members were. At that time, we were under the Department of Public Safety.
Yes.
And we were pretty much self-contained, and we operated our operation with a real high level of professionalism. And in 1992, we were merged with the MDC police, the registry police, and the colonel became directly under the thumb of the governor's office, which I can tell you from personal experience injected politics into this like I had never seen it before. And I think what you're seeing now is the fruits of some of the structural defects that were caused by that consolidation. And we think that some of these need to be addressed and need to be rectified, or this is not going to improve. It's not going to improve.
So Dennis, I'm only here for a few more minutes. Talk to me, talk to the audience about, I think it was on Cliff's agenda, this young man who was in the academy as a state trooper, got into a boxing ring.
That's correct.
For what was a training, part of his training.
That's correct, yeah.
And has now died.
Yeah,
That is under investigation.
that's correct.
It doesn't, as somebody from the outside, I got to tell you, don't look good. Just give me your opinion.
Okay, so I have some information on that. I mean,
Thank you.
I can tell you this. First of all, I was heavily associated with the State Police boxing program. I was very familiar with the individual who founded the program and the people who supported. It was initiated in 1975. I participated and was a member of the boxing team. And the program was very well structured, very well supervised, and it was intended to provide people with first of all, fundamental defense skills.
Right.
And then to give them the experience of 2 minutes of actual combat to find out what it's like to participate.
Because that's going to happen to a state trooper.
By himself on a highway.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
So I do commend the fact that there was forethought in the, hey, people need to know how to fight, because that's what's going to happen when you pull somebody over and they are angry. So I think the rationale for the program was very good.
Yeah, and it's benefited a lot of officers who have actually been assaulted,
Right.
and they're able to at least hold their ground until they can get some assistance to them. So that was the intent of the program. I still stand by the program, but the deal with a program like that, whenever you involve risk, and I think Cliff can add this. When you elevate training to a level where there's a higher level of risk involved, that requires intense supervision, it requires expert and ultra-mature leadership to make sure that it operates properly. And the issue with this thing that's disturbing is that no one's released any findings on it. It's been 4 or 5 months, and we still don't know what happened.
Right.
And I find that very disturbing.
Yes.
Because they should be able to determine what happened by now.
I think that clearly there's been an autopsy, there's been some findings. As a member of the general public, I want to know what happened to this young man.
Yeah, you should. I do too.
Because by all accounts, he was going to be the perfect state trooper. He was a victim witness advocate at the DA's office in Worcester.
Good experience, right?
Some good experience. Bilingual. Was very committed to the job.
Yep.
And I'm waiting for some answers too, because and the longer I have to wait, I got to be honest, Dennis, the more suspicious I become about what happened.
Well, that's
What
only,
happened?
that's only logical.
Right.
I mean, if you have any experience in Massachusetts politics or government in general, it doesn't matter, it's not unique to Massachusetts, you understand that transparency is critical.
Right.
And when it's not forthcoming, it automatically is going to raise issues and questions. And that's something that the people involved in this, I'm not sure that they understand that.
Yeah. The idea of boxing resonates with me. I graduated from the Air Force Academy. I've got more phys ed credits than a phys ed graduate from UCLA. Not that I'm an athlete, but I had to participate in regular phys ed and intramurals every semester.
Yeah.
And we had boxing, and we had wrestling. So it just seems like a normal part of how you prepare someone who's going to go out and be involved in this kind of activity. So, yes, it's disturbing not to get an interim report at the 4-month period. The helicopter crash that John had a picture of in New York, the plane breaking up in midair and going into the river, we're going to be expecting to have some sort of an interim report pretty quickly.
The National Transportation Safety Board will be on that, right?
So yeah, somebody is dogging it. It's not good. Another point that you had mentioned to me was that Governor Healy has proposed cutting $85 million out of the mental health budget, and I see this as a serious problem. My wife and I went to lunch at Applebee's in Tewksbury Tuesday, I think, and there was a guy standing between the outer and the inner door, and he had his bag, and he'd left the hotel. He was out of money. He's waiting for his father to wire him more money. And my sense was that he was homeless and had some issues. He came in, he asked for a piece of bread, and he walked back out, and I said to the manager, I said, if I give you 20, can you give him anything? And he said, he causes problems, and we've had to have the police involved.
No.
And that's a bad situation.
No.
And that, in my mind, people should be, we need to change the laws again, and we need to be able to engage those people. I'm not saying they should be locked up. Keep them in a motel, let them roam free, but make sure they get psychotropic meds that they need, that they get the counseling they need. So
There should be social workers involved, there should be medical staff involved. I hate to say this to people, do not give folks money, because sometimes people, and Dennis is well aware, self-medicate, and we'll go buy some nips.
Yeah, I mean,
Buy some drugs?
I think we're all old enough to remember when there was a very extensive mental health system, residential mental health system in Massachusetts,
Dukakis closed
right?
the mental health institute.
Well, actually, it was not Dukakis,
Who
it
was
was Charlie Baker.
Okay.
All right, Charlie Baker, under the guidance of Governor Well, decided to close these institutions and release people into the streets. And the logic behind it has still never been really clearly explained. And consequently, what has happened, and this is our concern, not only that we are concerned about the individuals involved because they need treatment, not punishment, but because of the fact that many of them have issues with acting out and can be violent if not supervised, will ultimately bring them into confrontations with the public and with police officers. And a certain percentage of those confrontations are going to wind up tragically. Either someone's going to get hurt, or the person who's having the problem is going to wind up getting hurt, or even worse. And the first thing that will happen in that situation is the establishment in this state will blame police officers, try to restrict the police officers further in what they can and can't do, especially particularly use of force, and they have abandoned their own responsibility to address the need to care for these people. It is a public disgrace in Massachusetts, in our opinion.
Virginia's got to say
I've
goodbye.
got to say goodbye. So let's face it, we all know that the new mental health facilities are prisons and jails.
That's absolutely wrong. It goes back to the 19th century when former Senator Charles Sumner was a part of the reform movement at Concord Prison, and that was one of the things that they addressed was the use of the prisons to house the mentally ill. And that is not what prison is supposed to be about. They need their own programs, their own institutions, and they need to be taken care of and treated, not punished. And we support that. And we support the Mental Health Association in their efforts to be able to try to reverse those funding cuts.
Regina, thanks a million.
Thank you so much, and I want you to give Kathleen Dennehy my best.
Oh, thank you, yes,
Did a lot of work
absolutely.
with me, so she's
Absolutely.
wonderful. So everybody, it was great to see you all this morning.
I will do so.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Dennis. Cliff,
Yeah.
as always. But I want to take my leave. Thank you, John. Thank you, Eileen, for letting me sit in your seat for
see you
this
Monday
morning.
night.
I'll see you Monday night.
Monday
Good night.
10 o'clock.
Oh,
So-
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also. Have a good day.
We're going to talk about these announcements right now. If you have an announcement you want on City Life, just send me a text, email, whatever. and we'll
Very
make it happen.
informed, by the way.
Coming
Nice
up this
job.
weekend, your mics are still hot, by the way, so whatever you say, everybody hears. This is a free medical clinic and health screening tomorrow at the Cy Unity Center, 40 Old Ferry Road in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. Whatever you have ailing you, just go over there. You're going to talk to a doctor, and they will take a good look at you. And if you want a second opinion and a first opinion, it's free tomorrow. God bless these people. They do this once or twice a year, and it's a really nice, loving service they give to anybody who's watching. You can live in Tewksbury. You can live in Tingsboro. They don't care where you live. You don't need to bring any medical insurance. This is all free tomorrow, and it starts at 8:30 a.m. and goes off and finishes up at 2:30. They would like you to register. It's not necessary. You don't have to. They'd like you to register just so they can beef up on what kind of help they need tomorrow. And there's a QR code here. If you take the phone out of your pocket, you have a smartphone, and you put it in camera mode, and you zero in on this guy right here, it'll bring you to a website, and you can register to go to this tomorrow. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you.
Moving right along for Puppy Picks. This is happening out at Charming Chelmsford on Saturday, April 12th, which is tomorrow, 1 to 3 p.m., 52 Richardson Road in North Chelmsford. Doll up your dog for Easter. They'll take pictures. Sounds like a fun time. Lowell High School Job Fair. If you're thinking of changing careers, next Thursday, April 17th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Lowell High School, 50 Father Morissette Boulevard. You can park at the George Anthes garage for free. They just got to validate your ticket. And complimentary table will be provided. This job fair will have no cost. And if you're thinking of changing careers, head down there. If you have some questions about this, call Colleen Gabriel. Her phone number's down the bottom there, and she'll enlighten you about this good opportunity to change careers. Rita Mercy is having a party a week from today, April 18th, 6 to 9 p.m., 449 Boylston Street. And like to see her out there. She always has a tasty buffet, and looking forward to going to that.
See the
Sakari Chow. Saw Sakari last night and his lovely wife. You're cordially invited to the Khmer and Southeast Asian New Year celebration with Sakari Chow. It's a fundraiser for his campaign, Saturday, April 19th, 7 p.m. to midnight at the Sampaio Mayos Restaurant, 450 Chelmsford Street. Enjoy a 5-course dinner. Those folks know how to eat, I'll tell you. They're going to have a live band. Seating's limited, so just call that number on the bottom of the ticket here, and hope to see you over there. Neighborhood meetings. We have 6 neighborhood meetings a month for all sections of Lowell. Take a look at this, may consider taking the phone out of your pocket, take a picture, go to one of these meetings and enlighten yourself what's happening in the community. If you have a gripe about potholes or whatever you might have a gripe about, you can get out and discuss it with your neighbors. It's a good service that your neighborhood meeting people put out there. John Dakota, shrink this up so it fits on the screen here. John Dakota, the committee to elect, the whole thing, that's it, okay. Committee to elect John Dakota invites you to a campaign fundraiser. He's running in District 8, that's up in the Highlands, Wednesday, April 30th, 5:30 to 8 p.m. at Mount Pleasant Golf Club, 141 Staples Street. If you're going to bring a check, make it out to CTE, which means Committee to Elect John Dakota. Donations start, suggested donations start at $20 and go up. Today is April 11th. So the Senior Center in Lowell, Massachusetts serves lunch every single day of the week unless it's a holiday. The only rule is you got to be 60 years old or older. Today they're having baked cod. So there's a yummy thing 7 days a week. Get over there around 10:30. We'll have a cup of coffee, sit down, relax, and at 11 o'clock the feed bag comes out. So that's it. So you can see later on in the month they're closed Easter and Patriots Day. So they're closed 2 days in a row. But they're open, other than that, they're open 7 days a week. Sweet and sour kielbasa coming up the end of the month. Good stuff. Okay, so if you know somebody who needs some prayers, call the Monastery of St. Clair, 445 Broad. That's where the monastery is. Just call them up, tell them what your prayer need is, and they'll be happy to say some prayers for whoever's in need. Good group of sisters out there. Belinda Duran is having a campaign fundraiser, campaign kickoff and fundraiser at the Longmeadow Golf Club, May 1st, and from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Waste and Junk Day. This is a fundraiser for Chelmsford. So you just head out there and whatever junk you have, take up your camera phone out of your pocket there, take a picture of this slide, and if there's some computer you want to get rid of, or an old big screen TV or tube TV, whatever you want to get rid of, bring it out there. There's a fee and help them raise some money. It's a good thing to get rid of those old electronics. Adrian Kamborowicz is having a memorial fundraiser Saturday, May 3rd at the Bunting Club. That's 449 Boylston Street in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. And good guy. He went way before his time. Rest in peace. Points of Light. This is a pretty cool thing. The 8th annual Points of Light cultural celebration is happening Saturday, May 3rd, 5 to 10 p.m.
Discussion.
We'll talk more about this as it comes ahead. And that's my last announcement. Back over to you, Cliff. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, and we're back with Dennis Galvin from Maple, the Massachusetts Association of Police.
Professional
Well,
law enforcement.
professional law enforcement. I keep trying to sneak police in there. It doesn't fit. Dennis is a retired state trooper. And we had been talking about homeless. And I think that the mental health side of homelessness is the missing part. But nobody seems to want to go up against the ACLU and the idea that the mentally ill can be restrained in any way. I think it's very dysfunctional. And its impacts like downtown Lowell. I think that homeless people tend to drive business away. But that's just my hobby horse, I'm sorry.
No, that's a major concern, and particularly with regards to community policing. Those are the problems that if you're trying to establish a community policing program, you're going to have to deal with, because it affects what they call the quality of life for the people around there, the businesses, the people who want to traverse. And there's ways that they can be addressed. I know that some cities have had very good success about dealing with these homeless issues. They're not unrestrained. I mean, they're not, there's not a legal protection to have unrestrained abuse going on in your street. You have there's laws and there's ways about going towards trying to adjust that, and we just need to have people in leadership positions that are willing to do it.
So, Dennis, what's going on at the Barnstable Police Academy?
Barnstable Police Academy is another sad story, and the Barnstable Police Academy was formed about 3 or 4 years ago. It was supposed to provide police training for the departments on the Cape, which include some very substantial departments like Falmouth and Hyannis. And recently, the program was suspended as a result of complaints regarding abuse of trainees. And this is another recurring problem of policing, particularly, and not only in Massachusetts, but across the board, is that the police have not really come into their own as far as defining who and what their training objectives are. And as a result of that, what they often do is they try to mimic military training, all right? In particular, the Marine Corps. And I mean, the Marine Corps is a very well organized, well researched, and focused training program. But its proposal, its objective is to prepare people to go in and fight a war, to hit a beach under fire. That's the objective that they need to get people prepared for. Same with you as at the Air Force Academy. You're being prepared for conflict. Okay. Now, while conflict can be a part of policing, it's not the focus of policing. Policing is supposed to be dealing with folks, with people. Now, while you want to preserve some of the aspects of the military organizational aspects of policing, to impose and use techniques that are designed to get people ready for combat on a constant basis are questionable. And that's what the big discussion in policing is right now. There are times when the issue is over stress training. How much do you stress? There is a time for stress training in policing. There's no question about it. When you begin to examine tactical skills or impart tactical skills and begin to introduce tactical skills that involve use of force techniques, pursuit driving, emergency driving, domestic intervention, you're going to need to be able to teach those in a stress environment, because that's what people are going to experience when they get out into the field. But when you're imparting informational aspects, the academic side of policing, which is considerable, which involves studies of the law, studies of psychology, mental health, all that type of stuff, that doesn't need that kind of environment. And to have people constantly being subject to harassment is really uncalled for. It's a bad practice, and it should be discontinued. And somebody did not get that message down at the Barnstable Police Academy, so consequently, the place is now shut down.
I got 2 comments from the audience. And empty storefronts, empty buildings might be the reason no one goes into downtown Lowell.
That's an important comment.
How come the city councilors don't do their re-election parties in the downtown area? Just wondering. Dennis, question for you. And if you can't do everything, but what's the difference between a Massachusetts state trooper and a state cop? Nowadays?
There's no difference. It's just one is a slang. It's a the official position is trooper. That's the name of the position. If you're part of the Massachusetts State Police, you're fundamental, as in Lowell.
The guys and gals over the registry of motor vehicles are troopers?
If they're part of the Massachusetts State Police, they are. If they're sworn members of the uniform branch of the state police, they are troopers.
Now, what's the difference in the training that you got as a real trooper in today's, as I call them, less than troopers?
Well, I mean, our training cadre, who I now know, and several members of our organization, I had the greatest respect for. They were all very accomplished individuals. I mean, when the head drill instructor at the time had been a drill instructor, I believe, at the Annapolis Naval Academy. And then we had a former Command Sergeant Major of the Massachusetts State Police was a member of it. We've had former officers. We had one individual who's a commissioned officer in the Army who was part of our training. And they were all very well educated individuals, and they were in phenomenal physical condition. And they had a program, and I know the director. We had the director of the program is a member of Maple. Jimmy Martin. They had a very established program. They knew what their goals were going to be. They knew what they were trying to condition us to be able to do, and they stuck to that program all the way through. They never did random actions where they pulled a class out and made them do push-ups on the tar and things like that for no reason. They had punishments, and they had issues where you had to do like penalty details and things like that, but they were tied directly to a specific malfunction that one of the trainees may have engaged in. So, and their orientation was to correct the program and to teach. What you see in many academies today is just random harassment, and that is absolutely not acceptable.
Dennis, when you were a state trooper, you were really state troopers. You didn't do 67 miles an hour on 495. You did 65. Now,
It was 55 back then.
whatever. You didn't do 57. You stayed with it because you'd get a ticket. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. Can you speak to what's going on in the state police, why they don't give?
I think what's happening is, I don't think anybody has really revised and instituted the mission statement for the state police. State police have a very broad area of involvement. They have full police powers across the state. And I don't think that management has actually taken the time to focus in and saying, okay, these are the priorities that we're going to focus on. These are the objectives, and we're going to stick to them. Now, one of the priorities that I was aware of and that I was inculcated with was that the highway patrol was part of our responsibility. We had to patrol the highways and ensure safety. I think there's been a deterioration in that mission. I think I saw it related going back to the Weld administration, when they began to de-emphasize motor vehicle enforcement on the highways. And as a result of that, state police sort of took the initiative and began to withdraw from it. I mean, there's still troopers that go out and they do it, but I don't think you see the same emphasis on it that you did, say, 50 years ago.
And that's from the governor's office? you
That's from the governor's office, yeah. Stop and think about this. Nobody likes to get tickets, right? So what happens? People call the governor's office.
think? Well, Dennis,
And,
I mean, I'm roaring into Boston, roaring home from Boston at 85 miles an hour with everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
And so is it going to take a 100-car pileup for the governor to wake up and say,
Well-
hey?
Well, let me
this
tell you,
is
let me give you a specific example.
When you're done with your answer, I'm going to go to this text.
All right, well, when, in I think it was 1983, up until 1983, there were a few of us that were enforcing OUI rules. Drunk driving on Massachusetts highways in the 1970s and early 1980s was horrendous. I mean, they were on Friday nights when I was on patrol. I was actually afraid to go out because I was afraid that somebody would plow into me or cause a problem. So, we saw it as our responsibility, and we emphasized arresting people for this. That wasn't a common practice in the department. The management at that time did not emphasize OUI arrest. New Hampshire did. New Hampshire was a very strict state for enforcing OUI laws. In one of the, I think it was 1983, 1982, 25 people get killed in one Christmas holiday because of drunk driving accidents. And I can remember there was one particular case in which an entire family got wiped out in, I think it was in either Hyde Park or Jamaica Plain. And that just changed the entire attitude, and OUI enforcement became a big priority. Same thing happens here. Unless somebody forces this to happen, the inclination, the normal way of doing things is to lay off.
Thank you, Dennis. Comment from the audience. Maybe Lowell could use the guardian angels to help the crime homeless. Obviously, the Lowell police are not doing enough. Back over to you, Cliff. Thanks.
So, yeah, I get or maybe I'm just imputing this to you, but organizations drift.
Yes, they certainly do.
The Marine Corps does a great job these days, but I'm older than you guys, and I remember back around 1954 where some drill sergeant marched his platoon into the swamp
And they drown, right?
at night.
Right.
Yeah, they lost a bunch of them.
That's right.
And there was reform after that. So you have to always be checking to make sure you're not drifting. But,
Well, here's one problem that we're having, and this is one thing that's of concern to us. Police corruption, police misconduct has been a fact of American life ever since it began. It began back in New York City, back in the 18th, 19th century. And in more recent times, there have been several commissions that have been organized to conduct independent reviews of police organizations. Most notably is the Mullen Commission in New York, the Christopher Commission, and the Rampart Commission in California, which we are all familiar with and have all studied. And they've come up with significant recommendations for modifying and changing police organization. The last time anything like that was ever conducted in Massachusetts was the St. Clair Commission that investigated the Boston Police Department following the incident involving the Stewart case, where a black individual was wrongly accused of the murder of a young pregnant woman, and it was actually her husband that did it, and he tried to set up the idea that it was a racial incident. A major investigation was conducted of the Boston Police Department, and it ended with the resignation of, at that time, Police Commissioner Mickey Rourke. And significant reforms were put into the Boston Police at that time, one of which was the adoption of community policing. We have been calling for something like that for the Massachusetts State Police for the last 10 years. And that call, it's been in the newspaper, the Boston Herald has basically has projected for us. And the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is resistant to doing that. The state police need to be examined by a formal commission so that we can actually find out and identify what the flaws were, I think, in the consolidation plan that happened in 1992. And these can be straightened out, and this organization can be restored. And that's to your point. And reform is essential. It happens. Human organizations are human. They fall off the mark. But you have to be able to be willing to make a commitment to reform. And right now, I don't see Massachusetts as doing that, at the state level anyway.
what about police administration? Do we need to shake up how we're doing that kind of thing?
That's an interesting topic, too. We began to examine that as well. And one of the most interesting findings that we've come across is how Los Angeles does its business. Now, Los Angeles has its issues. Don't get me wrong, but the Los Angeles Charter in 1921 actually made the statement that a direct link between the chief executive, which would be a mayor or a governor, and a police chief is a recipe for corruption. And what they decided to do to try to address that was to interject a board or a commission. In Los Angeles, it's called the Board of Police Commissioners. 5-member board appointed by the governor with the assent of the city council. This is a public board that consistently evaluates and examines and audits the police department, selects and recommends the chief. The chief has a contract, so he or she is protected by the contract that they can be removed for cause, but there's direct oversight of the police operation by the civilian commission. Now, there's been a lot of resistance to civilian commissions. These are not civilian review boards. All right, civilian review boards are specifically looking at civilian complaints, and these are not good because the emphasis is out of context of the whole operation. But I find the idea of a police commission for cities for any city government and for certainly a state organization to be a very interesting possibility.
So, do you think it'd come down as far as Lowell, or is it just a sort of Boston state kind of?
Well,
issue?
I think what we would be looking at is possibly legislation that would allow cities to make the decision whether they want to move to a commission system. And if that's the case, then, they can vote it in by a vote of the city council or whatever. It'd be a local option kind of a thing.
Dennis Fan Club. I enjoy Mr. Galvin on the program. He sounds like a fair, honest individual, and he is.
Thank you.
So, going back to Karen Reed and all that, was there an audit of the Canton Police
Yes, there
Force?
was, yes.
How did that go?
It was interesting. That the audit, I can't remember the name of the auditing company, but the people who did it were former DEA people. They were members of the U.S. Department of U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, and they're now into police consulting. And they made some findings about the police department that were interesting. They found that for the most part, the Canton Police Department is basically it's par for the course. Massachusetts. No great structural flaws. There was supervision by the Board of Selectmen. However, the problem they found was that number one was the police chief oftentimes directly investigated complaints himself, which is not a proper practice. It's supposed to be somebody on the staff does the investigation and then presents the findings to the chief, and the chief makes a decision. That was one item that came out. And the second thing that was very striking about this was that the Canton Police, this town of Canton is really disrupted by this situation. There were statements in this report that they can't even conduct a town meeting without real serious divisions erupting, and I'm not saying fights, but disorder breaking out. So I thought this is having a very strong effect. The police department is under extreme pressure. Police officers are being regularly threatened by the public, and there's a need for some real leadership down there. In regards to the situation involving the Reed case, they documented some very serious flaws. Number one, the responding officers, there was no immediate photographs of the scene, which is a standard practice in all policing. And albeit there was a blizzard they were responding to. And the second thing is they didn't lock people into statements immediately. There was a time delay before people were being treated, being interviewed. And that is something that, those are two fundamental things that you have to do at a major crime scene, is you have to document the crime through photographs, and then you have to take statements from people who are directly related to it, and they didn't do that.
Barging in for 1 second here. On Monday, we're going to have, Cliff's going to be the host. Dr. Bill Johnson from UMass is going to come. Eileen Delrossi will be here. Fru Neckenbeng will be here, usually on Zoom. Mike Smith, Zoom in from Florida. And State Rep from Tarahung. He graciously agreed to come back. We had a flip up. We didn't have internet one day, so thank you. We'll see how those guys on Monday.
Yep.
Dennis,
Yeah.
when a cop is dead, it's a wicked big deal. And
Yeah, should be.
And the Canton cops didn't think such a thing.
I don't know what their mindset was. I think they were, I can't speak to that. All I can tell you was that that the bare minimum, there was a responsibility that was not discharged. And that's caused the entire evaluation of this whole incident to be trying to catch up with it, because you have to get the stuff when it's fresh. If you don't do that, you got a problem. But I would ask when you have some of these folks on who are state political figures, I would ask them if they would support the idea of a commission to investigate the Massachusetts State Police and the way it's organized and conducting itself. Because I think it's very important that they get state buy-in, because this will not change. I think Colonel Noble is making an effort to try to do the job, but I think it needs a much broader, wider set of hands to examine this issue.
Dennis, what's this post-commission that I've heard about in the news?
Post-commission stands for the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. It was implemented in 2020, 2021. It was a fruit of the tragic situation involving George Floyd in Minneapolis, and it was an attempt by Massachusetts to begin to catch up with the rest of the country on instituting standards and enforcing standards for police performance. And it's been struggling. It's doing its job now. It certifies and decertifies police officers, and so we're trying to work with it to make sure that it really rolls itself out to become a truly professional oversight agency.
That'll be good. Dennis, we're running out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for
This
having
is
me.
important stuff.
I'm glad to come back and talk anytime. This is a developing saga, and we'll be glad to keep you posted on
I'll
it.
book you before you go out the door. Thanks, Dennis.
All righty.
Hey, everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good.
Down.